Welcome everybody. Have a look at you. You're fantastic. What a great turnout today. It is wonderful to see so many people piling into Rundle Park. I really like to welcome you all to celebrate our freedoms here today and to support the people whose freedoms are being trashed, absolutely stomped on by these tyrannical measures. So people are... Whoa. We all right, Benny? Big thanks to Benny the sound man, by the way. Okay, hopefully that won't happen again. Look, my background, I've been voluntarily assisting people who've had inquiries about vaccines for 2.5 decades. I have a science pharmacology background, also a teaching background. So that's how I come to be here and hosting this event today. We have a number of speakers who are very passionate about their respective topics, and we have loads of people on the ground who are connecting people and supporting people and building this community as well. So I hope that through the course of today's events you all get to connect and meet with people and feel supported. And if you need, please remember that we have AdelaideFreedomRally.com, the website with a subscription page where you can also email your inquiries and be kept up to date with news and events. There are a couple of people here doing great things. Old mate Julian, young mate Julian's got some free water for you here, beautiful Green Hill Springs water. Over to my right there is a picnic table where there are petitions. Now these are the parents that are campaigning really hard to get masks out of schools, off the faces of their children. So they want the government to take immediate action to remove the requirement of the wearing of masks by students in schools, and to remove the principal's interpretation of COVID recommendations and allow parents onto school grounds. So please, sign that petition, take a petition, share it. This is really important. We have our own table with a bit of information, but importantly these badges. I'm wearing my Love Heart badge to signify that I'm on board, I know what's going on. And people see that, they can come up and talk to me and give me a hug, which is wonderful. And then I'm also wearing my absolutely infallible badge that says medically exempt, with a picture of a mask. Now, I am absolutely not doing anything to incite anything, but I'd like to tell you that just wearing this badge, I feel emboldened and empowered, and I've pretty well been allowed to walk in and out of anywhere with a great big smile on my face instead of a mask. And I think these badges are really powerful because it just sends that simple message: I'm not wearing a mask. I'm exempt. I mean, we all have a right to breathe free air. We are not in a state of emergency, even though that's just been signed off again. Do we know that? Is everybody aware of the wonderful news? We don't even have a governor sworn in yet, not until October, yet an administrator signed off on your rights yesterday or the day before, extending the state of emergency for another month. In the state of South Australia, where you can look at the COVID dashboard and see for yourself that we have zero COVID here. So the biggest reality that has been facing myself and the people at Informed Choice Network, our first speaker will be Stuart Lindsay. He'll speak to this as well. Our phones have been running off the hook with stories of people in the aged care worker industry who have they've obtained medical exemptions, some of them, filed them, and then they've been rejected and they have been sacked on the spot. So according to Stephen Wade, we have a total of 10 people in the whole of South Australia in the aged care industry who filed medical exemptions. Can you put your hand up if that's... I'm suspecting there's a whole lot more than 10. And I'm also suspecting that 95% of those aged care workers aren't fully vaccinated, or at least had one dose, which is the other claim he made yesterday. And that reminds me that we all need to be reminded and share at all times that this experimental jab is exactly that. It is still in the trial phase. So one has to ask, how do we land in a world where all convention is thrown out the window over an experimental drug, okay, in the trial phase? You should be asked, are you willing to participate in a trial? Not told, you haven't had the jab, go home, you're not working here anymore. Now we know, all of us know, anyone who can put two brain cells together can see that we're being lied to about this jab and the adverse events and deaths that are occurring as a result of it. You don't need a carrier pigeon with a note to look up overseas statistics on the reported deaths and adverse events following their vaccination campaigns. Also, the subsequent hospitalisations of people with COVID strains despite having two vaccines. So I was prompted to actually just have a quick look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics last night and just update myself on deaths of all causes. You can look at the TGA website and you can get a guide as to how many thousands of adverse reactions have been reported. It's around 55,000 deaths, around 600 or so, but they're dismissing a lot of them. So I thought I'd just have a look at the death rate overall and see if there's anything to glean there. And I love a bit of maths. So according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and I'll send the link, well, we all know that COVID deaths replaced flu deaths last year, yeah? So the death rate didn't actually change. So I was looking for any changes in the death rate, and they can report on average deaths between January and May this year compared to last year, and then compared to 5 years previously. So they went up slightly last year. They went up slightly again this year, but in May this year, and that's the last month I've got stats on, in May this year there was an increase in deaths from all causes and I calculated it as 48 deaths a day. Okay, that's from their statistics. Now, I can't tell you what the causes are, but this is a body that compares what's going on across the board, whether it's respiratory or cardiac or cancer or whatever deaths. So a jump of 48 deaths a day, let's times that by 7, say 350, just short of 1,500 extra deaths recorded. People died in May, 1,500. Do you think that's something to be alarmed about? Yeah. Does it coincide with the jabs, and particularly the second jabs? So there is an increased death rate in this country, and I am keen to see the statistics for June, July and August as well. So we know this is a huge cover-up. We know that people are dying from the vaccine or the jab. We know it's not a vaccine. We know that people are getting ill and people are now losing their jobs. We know that there are more than 7,000 people trapped interstate, not able to come home to their own families. So the list goes on. We know there's 26,500 people watching football, but only the bride and groom dancing at a wedding. So, you know, the list goes on. This state of emergency has to stop. Yeah, that's right. Today we'll be having some speakers and then we'll be marching around the city to spread our message. I've had a number of people contact and say, please can we be respectful with that? And I get it when you see, I'm guilty of it too, someone in a mask, I would say you can take off your mask, okay? We don't want any kind of criticism going out to anybody. We're an expanding community, and among us are people who have to wear masks, among us are people who've had the vaccines. So the first message from Australian Freedom Rally and myself is that we are respectful to all people at all times. They haven't locked down our CBD to stop us. We're not in a state of emergency. Well, we're not in a lockdown, sorry. What we have is SAPOL who are here in the background, totally in the background, and they're here to support us on our march to keep us safe on the streets. That's the start and finish of their involvement. So we're in a far different space than our interstate counterparts, and we're going to stay in this space no matter what, rest assured. I do have, I think it's Auntie Sandy was going to do a welcome to country. Is Auntie Sandy here? Yes. So I think I've preempted the welcome to country, but Auntie Sandy is an elder and she's offered to do a welcome to country. Then we'll move into the speeches.
Hi everybody. Yeah, welcome. This is fantastic. I'm a two-way culture consultant because all our traditional people, most of them, have gone. So I'm welcoming Ghana, which is, we go by our songline, where you were born. So I was born in Adelaide, but my ancestry is down at Uraldi country at Wellington on the River Murray. My great-granddad, I've written 2 books about his journey and forced assimilation. So I didn't realise I was doing this today, so I've got my pink freedom colours on, and I think welcome you. This is like our new dream time, and because this is my first welcome, I really work with ancestors. My dad's Scottish and my mum's Uraldi and ancestry, so ancestors around the world are with us. And whether you believe spiritually or what, but this land is very, very sacred. I joined the People's Treaty with Soli, and there's a movement going where we are actually, they have got something putting lawyer away, and I've actually got an event that we're approaching SGIC, anything to do with the state. But anyway, that's my journey. But I'm just welcoming past, present and future elders, and our ancestors are with us on this journey, whether you're, and we are such a multicultural country.
All right, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. It's and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, it's a privilege to be able to speak to you, and it's a privilege to see and address so many freedom-loving South Australians today. I know we're living in circumstances where many of you would be experiencing anguish and travail. I'm here to give you some encouragement. I'm here to give some practical advice, but I'm also here to give some warnings and about some dangers we're going to be encountering and some difficulties we're encountering. And I'm not here to make anything appear better than it is. It's not my job either, of course, to frighten you. That's the job of the media that are here today. And let me say they're doing a very good job of it. I bear in mind what Kathy says about I bear in mind what Kathy says about excuse me, more volume? Louder. Can we have more volume? No, that's maximum volume. I'm sorry. There we are. We'll just move a bit closer. All right. Excuse me. You might have to move forward a bit. This is the sound system at its maximum. So if you're in the outer areas and you want to hear us, please come forward. Yes, aren't the media doing a wonderful job of frightening us? As I say, bear in mind what Kathy said about being respectful, and I say this with the greatest of respect, but to all those representatives of our degraded media and broadcasting system here today, I ask you, can't you find a more dignified way to make a living? Yeah. You have disgraced the companies you work for. Those companies have disgraced the nation in which they make their money. It's about time you lifted your game, because you're taking us down with you. Now that might give you a taste of my idea of why I'm here. I'm here to tell you the truth. And I'm here to tell you the truth because everywhere we're hearing lies. Now, we all have our issues that irritate us the most, that distress us the most about this phony pandemic we've all been experiencing. Mine is masks. You all understand, of course, that last lockdown was all about the message being sent to Marshall when he met with his colleagues in Canberra that South Australia was behind the other states in the imposition of masks. We hadn't been conditioned enough. And that's what happened. It doesn't matter how long I live and how long this, I'll never get used to it. It sickens me. Every time I look out my window, every time I walk down the street, and I see people forfeiting their freedom for nothing. For an imaginary, for a phantom virus. I like looking at the origin of words, and you may be aware of this, but that word mask comes from a Latin word masca, which means a spectre or a nightmare. Isn't that appropriate? And in fact, that Latin word goes back further to an old French word, mascara, which of course you would be familiar with. It means blackness and darkness. What an appropriate symbol for the age we're living in. Now, the reality is we are living in a state of emergency. Not the state of emergency confected in respect of this phony pandemic. We're living in an emergency in relation to our liberty. And it's been accelerating. Between last September and now, we might have thought it was accelerating, but my suggestion to you is that within the next 4 or 5 weeks, that same acceleration will happen again. So we better prepare for it. I'm sure your experience has been the same as mine. Occasionally we get these embers of hope and we think surely they're not going to persist in this madness, but they do. Don't kid yourself. It will only get better if we make it better. Now there are 2 people in the crowd today, and I want to tell you a bit about their recent experiences in the hope of demonstrating what I've just been putting to you. The first one is a fellow called Andrew. Andrew's in his 30s. He teaches at a Christian school. Bear that in mind, a Christian school, when you hear what I'm about to tell you. He's a geography teacher. He had a very good relationship with his year 10 and 11 students, girls and boys. I know that because I've seen them interact with them. I know how much they love him.
He's a good lad.
Now, we know how this mask mandate arose at schools. It's very instructive itself in relation to how this putsch has been carried out. When that last lockdown ended, the police commissioner was very careful to tell us all that he wasn't imposing a mask mandate. And then on the Monday morning, the first Monday morning following that, SA Health, that coven of tyrants, SA Health wrote a letter to every secondary school principal in the state and told them that masks were mandated. It was just a filthy lie. Masks had not been mandated. The only person in the state, in this irregular system we're living in, which is bad enough, is the police commissioner. He's the only one that's got the power to order any mandate in relation to masks. They put the word on him to do it. He resisted it. So they went ahead and imposed their so-called mandate in any event. So we're doubly tyrannised at the moment. There should never be a state of emergency. We all know that, and it's persisted now for about 20 months. But now, persons who don't even have the powers under the state of the emergency are purporting to impose the mandates. And what did we see happen?
They lose their job.
Nearly every school principal with whom I spoke imprecated not to impose the masks, imposed them. And this is what happened at Andrew's Christian school. Now, when it did, naturally enough, his students were inquisitive about that. They trust Andrew. And they asked him, is this the law? And he explained to them that it wasn't. He got a copy of the direction. He told them the truth about it. Now, it just so happened the principal of this school was walking past the classroom door when he was doing that, and he overheard this conversation with the students, and he metaphorically dragged Andrew out of the class. And there was a discussion at the door of the classroom. He didn't like the truth being told about the mask mandate he'd gone along with. And at that instant, within 2 minutes of Andrew being taken out of his classroom, he was stood down. Is that not astonishing? At a Christian school.
Disgusting.
He was stood down and he was told to come back in a couple of days for what we lawyers would call a show cause hearing. In other words, you tell me, Andrew, why I shouldn't sack you for telling the truth to his students. He was allowed to bring along a friend. He contacted Kathy's organisation. I was his friend. And I'm very pleased to be his friend. I'll tell you something about that meeting in a minute, but let me tell you something just as ghastly that occurred before it. There was a Monday morning intervened before the meeting. There's usually a school chapel on a Monday morning, but this principal decided they wouldn't have chapel on that Monday morning. They'd go to their home groups, the students, with their teachers, all masked up. They'd go to the home group and they had to watch a video that this principal had made, and the video consisted of him interviewing persons in Sydney and persons in Indonesia, explaining how bad the COVID pandemic was and how good the Pfizer jabs were. So if this isn't an emblem of our degeneration, what should have been a chapel service at a Christian school was a commercial plug for the Pfizer organisation. Now listen, I'm not in the business of exaggerating things so that you get a false impression of what actually occurred. I'm telling you the truth. I'm giving you my commitment about this. There are enough lies being told. I'm telling you the truth. So anyway, the meeting. This is a chapel event that's taking place with everyone masked. And I thought to myself, what sort of fresh hell is this we're creating for our youth? So we went to the meeting. Andrew, to be frank, he had spoken firmly with the principal at the door of the classroom, and he spoke firmly again. He apologised if there was any impoliteness involved in what he'd said at the initial interaction, but he stood his ground. Just like Martin Luther did all those centuries ago. Here I stand, I can do no other. And let me tell you, I was very proud of him at that meeting. I was honoured to be his friend at that meeting. Now the expectation was, and I can't speak on behalf of the school's legal representatives who were present, but very much my impression was we all knew that any sacking in these circumstances would be completely unconscionable, completely unjust, unfair and unconscionable. He sacked him. He sat there and read his prepared speech, this COVID fanatic, and he sacked Andrew instantly, a summary dismissal. Did I tell you Andrew has 4 children and that his wife is engaged full-time in looking after him, after them and him? He's had no other source of income. That made no difference to Andrew in how he conducted himself either with his students or with that principal. There have already been proceedings instituted in the Fair Work jurisdiction. I'm confident he will prevail. But I want to tell you something about the sequel to that. Whilst I was present at the school, sitting in amongst all these masked individuals coming up to wish Andrew well, I saw that he had a lot of support, and that support appeared to continue after his sacking. Teachers were insistent that if he's gone, we're going. We'll be telling the principal that we won't be staying. Parents were saying, we will remove our students unless Andrew is sacked. This is what we're going to do, Andrew. Just spare your applause for the moment until you hear the denouement of all of this. And both teachers and parents were insistent they were going to be writing to the school board. The school board, bear in mind, made up of long-standing pastors of Christian churches. They'd authorised and approved this. Well, this is one of the lessons I'm going to try and communicate to you today. Let me tell you that we're 3 or 4 weeks down the track from Andrew's sacking, and none of that has happened. No teacher resigned. No parents took their children out of the school. The board didn't receive any kind of communications from the school community.
Why? Now.
So there's the lesson. You're on your own in this. I don't know whether any of you have watched the old Western High Noon. Well, if you haven't watched it, you should find a copy of it and watch it now. We should be going back to a lot of our things in our cultural memory. They teach us lessons. They come from our Christian foundations. Andrew was like Gary Cooper, going out in the street to face the evil that had just come off the noon train, that we're going to take the people back into lawlessness. 4 against 1. And all the townspeople from whom he'd sought help were cowering in their homes. That was Andrew's experience. How in hell's name do you think we're going to make a difference in this tyranny unless we're prepared to make the sort of sacrifices that Andrew made? Now let me tell you, he has made a difference. He has made a difference. He's made a difference to those students who saw what he did. Don't forget that. These 13, 14 and 15-year-olds who love the man anyway, they know what he's done. They will be able to contrast his example of manliness to what they see going on in the world around them. The same that your children see every day, with men and women compliant with these ridiculous masks that have absolutely no scientific foundation. He's a hero, in my view.
And us too.
And I remember giving a speech at Victoria Square, I think it was in December of last year, and I remember talking about the 3 weeks to flatten the curve, if you remember that, and schools being plastered with signs and paintings that the students had been ordered to make about the medical heroes that we're dealing with this pandemic. the medical heroes, overpaid doctors and overpaid nurses fighting a pandemic that didn't even exist. But Andrew's a real hero, and if he's here today, and I think he is, I'm just going to ask him, if I may, to come forward, and I'd ask you to all express your appreciation of the example he's given us all. Here, Andrew.
You know, what I've learned from this really is that if we speak and if we walk in truth, then this all stops when we say no. I want to thank Stuart for his support in me, but not only myself, but others who have experienced job losses or who have experienced also persecution in their workplaces, in their families, in their communities. This is what we're all seeing, a huge division which ought not to occur. But when we know when something is right, then we have a conscience which doesn't condemn us. And I've thought about that many times. Should I have spoken up and stood up for what I knew what was right? And I know that if I'd done the wrong thing, there would be something inside me just grating, which would be making me feel uncomfortable, like I'd had an argument with my wife and it was time to apologise. But I haven't felt that at all. And I know that when we do what is right, we have that peace inside us. And we all need to do what's right, and we all need to say no. Thank you guys for coming out.
I've got to move along because there are other people who've got a lot of very, very good things to say to us all today. But just before we leave the topic of the school, this is a Christian school, of course, that follows a man that said, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free."
Yeah, right.
And then they sacked their teacher for telling the truth.
Right.
Christians, and I know there are many Christians here today, you have to reclaim your church from the servants of a corrupt and authoritarian state who currently occupy it. They are their servants. When they were told to close their church last year, they closed it. When they were told to stop giving communion, they stopped giving communion. When they were told you can't sing, they stopped singing. When they were told you had to sing with masks on your face, they put masks on the congregation's face. If they were told they had to pray standing on one leg, they'd do it.
Now they zoom.
We won't rescue Christian civilization until the church itself is rescued. The second person I want to tell you about, I'm going to call her Natasha. That's not her real name. She's an aged care worker. She had the flu jab in June. You remember that? It was aged care workers they picked on in relation to that. And of course that moved forward to the COVID jab in September. Do you see how these bureaucrats plot and plan everything insidiously? They've got the time and our money to do it all of course. Someone told me a long time ago, there's Malcolm Muggeridge I think it was, the big difference between people is between those who see life as a process and those who see life as a drama. And I like to think Christian people, I like to think all of us here today are the drama kind of people. If you see life as a drama, you see yourself as playing a part. You see yourself as making a difference. And you hope that the part you play and the difference you make means that the story, the drama, will have a happy ending. As distinct from process people. I don't think I need to describe who they are. We're just surrounded by them every day and every night. Why do they pick upon, why do you think they picked upon the old care workers? Would it be because they're in the lower paid of the community? The more vulnerable in the community? Lots of people who don't speak English as a first language? That's why they did it. Where were their unions? Isn't this the group of people that unions are there to protect? Are there any members of any trade union officials with us today? No, I didn't think so. Any members of the Labor Party here today?
Yeah.
No, I didn't think so either. Those union officials are determined to get their backsides on superannuation boards or in Parliament. They don't care about the persons like Natasha that I'm about to describe. Now, the direction that was brought out on the 20th of August that related to old age care workers was one that gave two possibilities for exemption. The first was a medical exemption. And the medical exemption is just what it sounds like. It was a medical exemption given by a qualified legal practitioner. It was his or her decision as to whether that person was medically exempt. Now, sometimes the doctors didn't quite word it correctly, and we changed the wording of it and they were resubmitted. As for this fellow Wade that Kathy told you about, this Stephen Wade, who says there are only a handful of exemptions, what he didn't tell you, of course, is there would have been hundreds that they rejected. They weren't entitled to reject them. The nursing homes were instructed to reject them and told it wasn't an adequate medical exemption. They had no authority to do that. The police commissioner hadn't written anything into the direction saying, oh, it's up to the nursing home to adjudicate as to whether it's adequate or not. It was the medical practitioner's adjudication that mattered. Yet another example of SA Health conducting themselves completely unlawfully. This is the kind of situation we're living in. The other exemption was one where you could get a temporary exemption to ensure the maintenance of quality of care of the residents. And a temporary exemption might have been enough. Morrison might have read the Bible at one of his Christian churches and realised the terrible things he was doing to the nation that he leads. Just think what could have been done with that if the nursing home workers had been well organised. If the unions had done the work that they should have been doing, it could have been a situation of one of us goes, all of us goes. Isn't that what unionisms are meant to be about? Isn't that what solidarity is meant to be about? There was none of it. But let that be a warning to other professions. I'm sure there are nurses here today. There are waiters and waitresses from hospitality. There are there are policemen. You could be next. Teachers. You've got to organise. Your unions aren't going to do it for you. Let me give the burial rights for trade unions today. They've gone. They've ceased to do their job long ago. They have no reason to exist. But the corollary of that is you've got to organise yourselves. Don't sit back and think it's going to happen. It's not going to happen unless you organise. Get your workmates together. Say, are we in this together? And if you are in it together, you look after each other. But you've got to do it. Don't wait for them to come for you. Don't wait to see if this pandemic is, if this tyranny is going to disappear. It's not. It's ramping up. And it's ramping up very quickly. Maritime industry workers, they're the latest. You may not be aware of this. 27th of September, maritime workers, people who work at all of the ports, when ships come in, they go and they service them, they either service the engine, they service the crew. They won't get on board unless they're jabbed. Were you aware of that? Yes. Maritime union, not interested. The people I've spoken to who've said, I went to the union and they said, well, why don't you just get the jab? What I'm trying to communicate to you all, if you're in a service industry, if you're in an industry that's about to be the next along the slaughterhouse line, organise yourselves and do it quickly. Australia's been through this before. Australia in the 1950s tangled with communism in the unions. It was rampant. There was a party called the DLP formed. They formed their own industrial association. So we've been through this before. It's not new. What might be new is that we don't have the character of our forebears in the 1950s. Well, you better hurry up and find it, or we'll be finished. Now, Natasha had a perfectly lawful exemption. She was sacked. and she'll be off to the Fair Work Commission as well. Let me just say a quick word. I know there are other speakers. Let me tell you a quick word. It may be useful about the Fair Work Act. You know that Morrison's strategy has been to delegate all the dirty work for this phony pandemic to the states. And he's done that because by doing that he avoids complications that might arise from a certain document called the Commonwealth Constitution. He's essentially kicked it into touch by gathering all these creepy premiers. He gets the spinster premiers from Queensland and New South Wales, fresh from passing their abortion to birth laws, before they start to take the lives of children with their compulsory vaccines. He gets them, he gets Marshall, he gets all the health officers together, he throws money at them and he says, you go and do that work because then we won't be vulnerable to constitutional challenges. And he's trying to do the same, offload it to corporations in respect of employees. You see, he's doing that. But his problem is, the problem for this man is that there's something called the Fair Work Act and it's got teeth. And they might try and persuade you that the unfair dismissal provisions and the unlawful termination provisions aren't relevant in this situation. That's a total lie. If you have a medical exemption, the provisions in relation to medical exemptions with the aged care workers will be very similar in the next series of directions. And so you've got to try and take use of them if you can. You've got to play them for all they're worth. If it so happens that you're unsuccessful because they've changed the regulations in the meantime, well, that will only radicalise more of your workmates. Either way, there's no downside to being as strong as possible in exerting your rights in the Fair Work Commission. I should say a word about other strategies, and I'm nearing the end now. Look, just before I leave the Commonwealth, and this is said with due respect to all of the people that are trying to do their bit in resisting this tyranny, but you might hear from time to time advice about why not utilise the Biosecurity Act. The Biosecurity Act was brought in 2015. It's a Commonwealth Act of Parliament, and I think during the Abbott government, when Morrison was given his instructions from whoever it is that gives him his instructions to start carrying out the measures that all of the other countries around the world started carrying out in tandem, he would have turned to the Biosecurity Act and he would have said, oh, bugger me, this act's got teeth. There's some really serious protections to people in respect of the privacy of their information and in respect of all the measures that I plan to take through the states. And so he's kicked the Biosecurity Act into touch as well. The Biosecurity Act will only come into play when the Health Minister, Mr Hunt, I said, when Mr Hunt makes directions under that. And he's only made two that matter. The reason we can't leave the country is because he's made a direction under the Biosecurity Act about that, and it's also the reason we're subject to quarantine when we come back in. Other than that, he's not made any meaningful directions. So you hear people talk about what's happening in the States is inconsistent with Commonwealth law. There has to be an operational inconsistency. Morrison and Hunt have to issue their own declarations under this Act before it's inconsistent with the state legislation. Now, I'm not the people who tell you all about the Biosecurity Act. I'm sure they're well-intentioned, they're trying to lift your spirits, but we've got to be smart. We've got to be courageous and we've got to be smart and we've got to take advantage of the remedies that are available. Now, I'm going to wind up now. Getting back to Andrew's position, what I wanted to say to you, there are two aspects to our resistance, and we've got to resist. What I'm preaching today, let me be frank about it, carrying the risk of incitement, I'm preaching insurrection. I'm preaching revolt. I'm preaching rebellion. Peaceful. Now, I'm going to suggest all of the rallies, everything that's done happens in a very fair consultative process. My suggestion is going to be that the next rally is outside one of the institutions that's right at the heart of the machinery that's carrying out this tyranny. Why don't we meet at the entertainment centre, which also happens to be the rooms for Channel 7? This a crowd this size and more, why don't we meet there and insist on going in? This has happened in Slovenia. Since Slovenia was sick with their state broadcaster, they gathered, they went in whilst the lies are being peddled, whilst Koshi is sitting at his desk with spike proteins behind him talking about PCR test results and fraudulently claiming that a PCR test represents an infection, let alone a case. While they're doing, let's get into the studios. That's the sort of action I'm talking about. It may be, given the obstacles that we're facing, it may be that it's going to take generations to wind back all of the degradation of our civilization that's made us vulnerable, to falling for what they've done to us. That'll take time, but in the meantime we can be guerrillas. We can be partisans, we can harass them, we can harry them, we can take up their time and their resources. That's why I say to you, especially with respect to any expiation notices you get for not submitting to a PCR test, or any expiation notices you get in relation to some other measures they take under the direction, that you don't pay the expiation fee. I know it's tempting. They've set that up. They've set it up so that you'll pay the $1,000 rather than take the risk of 2 years imprisonment or $10,000. Don't pay it. Get them to issue the summons. There are good defences available. There are good defences available to this. The same with masks. If you get an expiation notice, that arises from a part of the declaration which gives the police commissioner a power to order rules that prevent the transmission of infection. You know as well as I do, masks don't do that. I'm going to have to wind up. There are many other people who need to speak. Can I just say to you that, in conclusion, that my whole attitude changed to this pandemic and my response to it when I sat down and I said to myself, what would it be like if I woke up every day and undertook to myself never to be afraid? And let me tell you, it's made all the difference. I invite you to do it.
Thanks, Kath. As Stuart said, look, thanks all for coming. It is an honour and a privilege to speak. I'll try and be pretty quick. I think we're behind schedule already. I just want to go through some random points and also finish on some really positive news and also a bit of information which will be handy for a lot of you that are in compromised sort of situations at work. So just randomly, I just want to start off. I had a phone conversation with a friend of mine in Canada a couple of days ago. She's a teacher over there. Some really disturbing news. She said that even though their school aren't going down the mandatory vaccination path yet, they're actually requiring teachers who don't have the jab, they need to be tested once every 2 days, and get this, they have to undergo a vaccination education program or a brainwashing program. So that's, yeah, it's pretty disturbing. It is. Just another random thing. I was in Tasmania 3 or 4 weeks ago. Flew to Hobart and back. Didn't wear a mask. I had a mask exemption form and a stat deck. I got pulled over 4 times. Twice in Hobart, twice in Adelaide. Got questioned. Mind you, the police were pretty good. But I just sat there and thought, wow, we're living in an age where I've had 4 more interactions with police officers than I have in my entire life for wearing an ineffective, unhealthy, psychological, damaging and environmentally unfriendly face nappy. What about all the campaigning at the moment? You got celebrities pulling up their arms, and you got I think it's 400 artists formed together for the vaccination. Guy Sebastian got in a bit of trouble for questioning that. Pretty sad. You've got like the NAB Bank has now temporarily changed their name to JAB. the TAB agency, the betting agency, they've also done the same thing. For those of you who are probably over the age of 40, do you remember the Meadow Lee ad? You ought to be congratulated. Yeah, well, they've revamped that. Now it's you ought to be vaccinated. And there was one more thing. Oh, that's right. I was flicking on the radio the other day. Triple M had Double Shot Tuesday for their playlist. So some of the promotional stuff's getting interesting. Obviously, all the media are ramping up the cohesion and that. The other thing is too, which is the narrative's getting a bit interesting. Like the Fringe, the directors or the organisers of the Fringe and the Arts are saying they may introduce mandatory vaccinations for people going to their events. The Bird in Hand Winery, I saw the Dick in Hand sign over there. I love it. Put your hand up if you've emailed them. Nice. I'll be honest, I haven't done it yet. I was going to. Actually, Trudy did a great email from the Adelaide Freedom Rally. It was sensational. But you know, what I'm tempted to say to them is, you know, if you're going to sort of mandate, you know, in terms of discriminating on the false sort of premise that, you know, the vaccines somehow stop transmission or infection and transmission, then and also on the false premise that, you know, they supposedly sort of reduce symptoms and therefore may reduce, you know, contagiousness. Well, you might as well get people at the door and test them for their vitamin D levels, you know, or their, you know, it's just ridiculous. Or even, you know, if they're obese, you know, or if they're of colour, because people of colour have low vitamin D levels. Are you going to, you know, ask them about how good their lifestyle is? You know, it's just absurd where it's all sort of going. Now, just while I'm talking about or questioning vaccine efficiency and effectiveness, there is more in my paper that Kathy mentioned, but just a couple of things that you can arm yourself with. A lot of, you know, maybe you've got pro-vax friends that say, well, you know, the vaccines are 95% effective and there's all the hospitals are filled with unvaccinated. I'll just challenge that for a quick bit. So with the 95% stuff, now a guy called Peter Doshi from the British Medical Journal did a really good article on this. I won't go too much into it, but he basically said the 95% is based on, there was 6 people that were actually tested positive and 170 odd unvaccinated tested positive, but they actually took out a number, I think 3,500 participants from that study, and if you actually included them, I think there was about 1,800 unvaccinated, 1,600 vaccinated. It would have dropped the 95% down to 19%, and they also took out 370 for unknown reasons or some protocol reasons. So it wouldn't be surprised if those numbers are actually 0. I'll wind up, Kath, right. So you can question that. The other thing too, you know how the media is saying that the hospitals are filled with unvaccinated people? Well, I had an interview with Dr. Carrie Madej in the States recently, and guess what? Guess what they're doing over there? So she's had hundreds of hospital workers confirm that when the vaccinated people are hospitalised with COVID, in the majority of cases, they are actually writing their vaccination status as unknown, to skew the numbers. The unvaccinated, they will mark unvaccinated, but the vaccinated, they'll go unknown. So this is how they skew the numbers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're doing the same thing in Australia. And I'm not sure how many people actually heard that interview with Stu Peters and that anonymous nurse. And yeah, she was basically saying the same thing. The hospitals are full of vaccinated, and she's actually saying it's the vaccine injuries that's why they're there. So there's a few things you can challenge people. Even Fauci came out and said the amount of viral load for the so-called Delta variant is the same in unvaccinated versus vaccinated. So this is coming straight from his mouth. Okay, I'll just wind up now. I just want to finish on some good news, right? So we got the UK has pulled back the vaccine passport. Denmark has done a similar thing. I believe in Florida they're actually going to be placing hefty fines on businesses that actually refuse people because of their vaccination status. In South Australia, and this is not confidential now, is it? The police commissioner is not going to mandate vaccinations for the police force, despite some rumours contrary. So, unless you're working in a Medi hotel, I think. And just finally, and this is where there's some important information. Actually, there is one more thing. Have you seen that Facebook page, Businesses Unite Australia? I think there's about 165,000 members. So it's so encouraging to see businesses out there, regardless of where legislation is going with this. It's so encouraging to see all these businesses saying we will not discriminate based on your vaccination choice. And that's going to be really important in the future, because we will need to develop communities outside this vaccination bubble. We need to find hairdressers that cut our hair. We need to find healthcare providers that will help us regardless of our vaccination status. So this is really important. And finally, in terms of good news, there's a lot of class actions and lawsuits happening at the moment. I spoke to, and I know Stuart mentioned a few things about that as well. I spoke to Serene Tepahar this morning from Advocate Me and People for Safe Vaccines. So she wanted me to sort of, well, yeah, I'll pass on this message. Basically, if you're in a situation where you're coerced or being forced into vaccinations at your workplace, basically, she's teamed up with a group called HRA, which is Human Rights Advocates, and they have 30 people, I think they're called 30 advocates that can help you. So you can actually get onto the email address. I think it's humanrightsadvocates.com.au. There are 30 available advocates that will point you in the right direction. There's templates. They can pass you on to lawyers and agents. So there is an option for you. I know Maria from Informed Choice Network, she's not here today. That's another option for you guys as well, and obviously Stuart's made some good points as well. So there are some people out there to help you guys in your workplace. I think that's pretty much about it, so we're behind schedule. So I'll just wrap it up there. So yeah, look, thanks again for all coming. Stick together, just stay true to yourself. Yeah, we'll get through this. There will be an end point. Don't know when, don't know how it's going to happen, but I've got no doubt we'll be okay, and we'll be on the right side of history, eh?
Thank you so much, Simon. And I've been watching them manipulate the statistics and the figures for decades, and it's just common practice not to record the vaccination status of somebody who's come down with a disease and that has been vaccinated, because obviously that's counter to the agenda. Now, next we have, and I'm doing my best to get through the speakers. There are so many people with good things to say. I have told the police that we'll be endeavouring to do our march at 1:30, and I suspect we may be a little bit delayed on that, and I apologise. But you do get to hear this important information from these brilliant people. So the next speaker, it's not you, Stephen, you're gorgeous, but it's not you. I sound like, am I on a reality TV show? Usher or something. I should mutter in hushed tones, the ones that didn't make the cut. This is Craig. Now, Craig is a teacher, and he's also a member of the Independent Education Union. So he's just going to have a word about teaching. Teachers, mandates.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about that. It's very hard to come after two so funny and talented, knowledgeable people, but I do have a joke for you as a teacher. And then there's two rats were going to get the vaccine, and the first rat said, "Are you going to have it yet?" And he said, "No, I'm going to wait for the human trials to finish." Yes. It's the tough crowd. My students laugh at that. Today's Freedom Rally is all about the fundamental right to choose and the freedom to choose what goes into our body. Without a carrot and stick coercion. It's the carrot and stick. And if you read, everyone knows the Nuremberg Code. The carrot and stick is universally banned. Thank you, mate. My name is Craig, and I'm speaking to give hope and a voice to everyone in the education sector. As the rapper Fox just sang to us before, it's for the kids, for the next generation that we're here. My two main concerns are an attempt to stop the divide in our community, to keep the peace and keep the unity in our community, and also to see what's going on interstate and overseas, and to stop any mandated vaccine passports that may come into education and every other sector in order to work. We've discussed that. But COVID has given us the opportunity to appreciate just how important schools are, and how important to families they are, and how important the care, the communication, the friendships that students have. And we only have to look interstate to that. We've been very lucky in South Australia, and that's why I'm here today, because if we don't take action today, look interstate, it's coming. We know it's coming unless we stand up to it. Clap, clap, clap. It's amazing to me just how usually organised, knowledgeable and highly opinionated teachers can be so silent on these issues. It's just crazy, I can't believe it. Got to meet Andrew afterwards about this too. About masks, about vaccines and about their job security. Maybe it's because they all get paid regardless of what's going on. Maybe they've got that type of job where they don't lose their job because of a lockdown. But after today, this is about to change. I'm currently teaching in both sectors. I'm in the department and I'm also in the private sector. I'm actually teaching in a Christian school. I'm also a member of the rep in the union. And when we had a union meeting only 2 weeks ago, the union said to us, we won't represent you if you just don't want to take it. We'll only represent you if you have, that's exactly right. So, exactly. So it's an obvious choice that I have now as a member of a union, whether I keep paying my fees. As so many of you will know, the doctors, even if you do have a health issue, the doctors will not sign off on your health issue for your exemption. Once again, the carrot and the stick. We all have anecdotes of people we know who know people where they just won't sign off. The silent majority that Scott Morrison mentioned is why we are all here today. There's in more humour that we heard today. We all know The Castle, the movie Castle, yes? And we all know Daryl Kerrigan. I think there's a lot of Daryl Kerrigan in all of us. The little guy who has no power. Now, luckily, we've got Stuart here, who's the lawyer who comes in at the end of the movie, who's going to save the day. There are a lot of other lawyers, like the other lawyer at the photocopy machine, who are useless and who are worried about their jobs. But we have to get on board, we have to support each other in this, and we have to unify and find people like the last two speakers who have that skill set and have that knowledge so we can work together. Mac from the Australian Education United New South Wales represents, you might know him on social live streaming, 6,000 educational sector members. He talks about school bullies and that school bullies are bad and should be stopped. The school bully, the harassment protocol usually goes like this: stop it, I don't like it. This is where we are now, stop it, I don't like it. The part after that is walk away. The part after that is go and tell somebody to get help. I was speaking to a really highly regarded principal and she said, I'm not going to take the vaccine. If they make me take it, I'll just have to retire. No, that's the next part with a bully. The first part with a bully is stop it, I don't like it. She should be stopping there and supporting us. But if she does go, what about all the other majority of people who can't stop, who can't retire, can't take their superannuation? So we're at the point where we need to send a signal that we don't want the vax passport. We are lucky. The guys on the social media interstate, they were saying, if only we had have done this march back in September. They said, we're in Sydney, we've got 4 million people. If only we had have had 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 at the march, instead of they had only this many people in the whole of Sydney back in September. They said, if only we had been more serious then, we wouldn't be in the situation we are in now. So that's why we need to make the most of this. What we're doing today, we're not just doing it for the teachers and the educators, we're also doing it for the police, we're doing it for the fire brigade, we're doing it for all those who work in childcare, we're doing it for, in fact, everybody. And clap, clap. Okay. So what do we have to do? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to respect everyone who's taken the vaccine. We have to be unified. We can't give anyone any excuse to call us wacko anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists. This is all about freedom to make the choice. We have to, my family, they want to get it, that's fine. I told them not to, they want to get it, that's their choice, but we have to respect those if we expect to be respected ourselves. That's the most important thing. So that's where it starts. If we can do that, then we'll get respect on the way. The next thing, as all the other speakers have said, we have to actually use facts and truth. This is what we lack. If we can stick to the facts, stick to the promises in our Constitution and hold that up, then we have something to stand on. There can be no emotion, there can be no feelings. It has to be factual, it has to be legislated, and then we have real teeth. Because it's, as Goebbels said, they said, how did you get away with what you did in the Second World War? He said, that was easy. It wasn't about the Nazi policy, it was about the fear. We just made them scared. We can see what's happening. If we can keep the facts and keep the truth and get it out there amongst our friends, starting small, getting bigger and bigger and bigger within whatever our skill sets are. If we're good at social media, do it. If we're good at just talking to people, do it. You know, if we're great with legal or anything medical help, wherever we can, we have to do what our skill sets are. Thank you very much. It's been an honour. Thank you.
So they're a group that sprung up when the initial mutterings of mandates for nurses and aged care facility workers came about, and they're doing, I imagine you are working day and night with your support network. Over to you. Thank you, Kathy. We have public liability insurance, but I still don't want anyone falling off the stage. Thank you, Kathy. First of all, look at this beautiful collective bunch of people here in Adelaide. Well done to everybody for attending today. As Kathy said, I'm Nishi from Informed Choice Network. We represent those who are currently being directly affected by the mandates. Our stand is for bodily autonomy, medical freedom, and the freedom and rights for our children. We are deeply concerned about the government and corporate policies, which is very concerning, given the large amount of coercion, manipulating, and even bribing their employees by taking this experimental vaccine. Where have our rights gone? Since when have the government and the teachers had the power to singly remove our children from our classrooms, to be able to advise them that they do not need parental consent to actually get this vaccine? This is legalised child abuse. Where have our God-given rights gone? Our government says that it's our choice to take the vaccine, but at the same time they're making the consequences of refusing the vaccine so severe that this is effectively no choice. The Nuremberg Code of 1947 states, regarding medical experiments, that the voluntary consent of a human subject is absolutely essential. Voluntary consent is important when you're threatening a person's livelihood and its civil rights. The aged care sector was the first industry to be mandated. This affected me personally, alongside thousands of others. Informed Choice is organising South Australians to fight this battle. We are a team of dedicated volunteers with various backgrounds and professions. We have a strategy in place, starting with practical, immediate steps to take, with continuing on with legal and political, which are formulating with lawyers and honest politicians. We understand that this is a very difficult time for those who are currently being affected, but we urge you all to hold the line. Stand strong, South Australia. Stand strong, all Australians. We will not be deceived in taking part in this experimental vaccine. This is not your way of your ticket to freedom.
We stand and we fight for you. We are here to help you. Vaccine mandates are shuddering and shaking against the fury of the people. Hold the line and we will bring them down. We are currently in the pipework. But we need you to stay strong now than ever, and everyone, do not give up. Australia's always been known to collectively come together and to fight everything. This is where we do, and this is what we do our best. Now I'll hand you over to Angela.
Well done, Miss. Hello, my fellow freedom fighters. I'm so glad to be surrounded by so many like-minded people today who are here to stand up for your rights. Remember, united we stand, united we succeed. We have a very important message for our politicians. Mr. Morrison, he made a very bold statement earlier this year stating that vaccines will not be mandatory and that we live in a democratic country where freedom of choice is valued. A few months later, vaccine mandates came into effect in certain industries and private companies were encouraged to promote this. How is that? Skilled and valuable employees are being redeployed or stood down from the positions. Medical tyranny has become more valued than freedom of choice. We have a very important question to ask our Labor MP, Mr. Peter Malinauskas. You have been very he's not Greek. You have been very outspoken about funding cuts to the SA ambulance services. You have been previously concerned about the ramping situation and about hospitals being understaffed and overworked to exhaustion. And yet, you are still pushing the vaccine mandates on our AMBOs, which will increase ambulance ramping and potentially put our community at a greater risk. Mr. Malinauskas, how can you be promoting mandatory vaccines if it will only cause more problems within our health system, which we are suffering already? We have been contacted by workers affected by these mandates, especially the SA ambulance workers, who have been taken off the roads, stood down and kept in limbo until being redeployed in alternative roles which they haven't signed up for. As a result, they have experienced pay discrimination and being penalised for their choice. Mr. Malinauskas, do you stand for discrimination, loss of jobs and added stress to our emergency services? How can we trust you when you say one thing and do another? We are still waiting for his response, and I guess he'll be waiting. Finally, one more question to the government. Why mandate vaccines for healthcare workers when PPE was provided to protect them? Are you saying that the PPE that was provided during the so-called pandemic was not good enough? That sounds like an admission to me. And once again, the rules are changed to suit your agenda. Before I go, I have a strong message from our frontline workers. Last year's heroes, this year's unemployed. We worked through the pandemic with no vax, and now they're firing us. Thank you, everyone. Now, we have some business cards to give out, so we'll be handing them over. If you need to contact us, our details will be on there. Thank you, guys, and be strong and never give up.
Thank you so much. Now we have Richard. Richard is a lover of freedom, and I think he's quite used to holding a crown.
Hi everybody, my name's Richard. I grew up in Western Sydney, New South Wales up until the age of 18 or 19 when I was moved to Adelaide and called this state my home, and I'm proud of this state. I make no apologies for being a Christian, and I thank all of you for coming out today. And we are possibly the last brave resistance, this crowd of 4,000 or 5,000 people. How did we get here? And I'll answer that in a few minutes. Who knows the song Forgotten Years by Midnight Oil? Yeah. Because of time restraints and my respect for other people speaking, I probably won't sing the song, and I won't sing all of it. But it starts off, it says, few of the sins of the Father are visited upon the Son. So I'm going to add to every one of those lyrics. Do we want this for our kids? Hearts have been hard, our hands have been clenched into fists too long. I'm not going to add anything to that. Our sons will never be soldiers, our daughters will never be guns. They won't need to be soldiers with this globalist stuff. It'll be one agenda. And guns for what? These are the years between, these are the years that have been hard fought and won. Contracts that are torn at the edges, old signatures stained with tears. That may as well be your medical immunisation papers, because I know a lot of people in Sydney who've had to take this unwillingly, under coercion, under force, under pressure, with regret and tears. Seasons of war and peace, these should not be forgotten years. Still it aches like tetanus, yes it does, because it's a needle. And it reeks of politics, yes it does, because we know it's more than the needle. How many dreams remain? How many? This is a feeling too strong to contain, and we all know the chorus. The hardest years, the darkest years, the roaring years, the fallen years. These shall not be forgotten years. The wildest years, the desperate and divided years. Pay attention to the word divided. Our shoreline was never invaded. We are invaded now, it just looks different. And our country was never in flames. Yes it is, we just can't see the fire. This is the calm we breathe, is the lyric. Well, we are trying. Forsaking, aching, breaking years, the time and tested heartbreak years, that's our last 18 months. The blinded years, and the desperate and divided years. That song was not meant to be a prophecy. Think about it, that song was supposed to be about our past. But if we look at those lyrics again, we could be singing that song in 6 months' time, 3 months' time. So I started and I asked, how did we get here? Well, I'm going to tell you how to get here. And if you don't agree, please bear with me, because I'm not having a crack at any minority or any religion or any certain section of people. It's death by 1,000 cuts is how we got here. Slowly but rapidly, whether you agree with me or not, the facts are that this nation, the greater world, has allowed an agenda that has hated the godly and Christian foundations that we are built upon. Yep. Please hear me out if you disagree. Our foundations, our freedoms, our way of life, our family, marriage, procreation, church, proper church I'm talking about, proper gutsy church, our judicial systems, they're all based on the Word of God. That's the truth that I want. Right now, if you disagree, look around. We're in a regime, draconian, tyrannical, fear-based, lies, agenda. This is communist, dictator, Nazi-style foundation. Do you prefer that or the Christian foundation? Ask yourself that. The world is in shock at the way Sharia law governs Afghanistan, the way they treat women. Do you want that or do you want our way? I'm not judging Muslim people, I love Muslim people, but the people around them and how they try to govern is not on. Other countries have social systems and class systems where you're always judged by your skin and your history, both family and regional, and there's no way out. Do you prefer that way or this way? So our Christian constitution doesn't look that bad, whether you choose to believe or not. Should we even have Anzac Day anymore? The country that was fought for by those courageous men that paid for blood, paid in blood for our freedoms. And this is what our government has done in honour of those who died. The very freedom that we had and marginally still have is the very thing that allowed us to be in the mess we see today. Think about that.
Criminals.
Our ways have been taken for granted. This is a spiritual war. As a Christian, my playbook is the Bible. This has all been written and predicted. And if you don't believe me, search it for yourself. Or come and see me after and I will show you. In the Bible, it speaks about the selfishness of man. How in the end, what is right will be wrong. What is good will be bad. That freedom will fight control. The families will be divided, all because of an evil spirit. It was written 2,000 years ago in Revelations that no man shall be able to buy or sell without a mark. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like right now? Could this be the freedom passports? Well, it may be the beginning of it. God is real. The evil is running amok, and I'll tell you why. Because our Father loves us so much that He's given us a free choice. A free choice. He is giving you a chance to come back to the truth. But he who believes in Jesus and the way of living doesn't fear this life. There is more to this life. There is an afterlife. The pure life is a narrow road. and keep yourselves pure as much as possible. Love one another, and I mean that. I don't mean that as a cliche, all you need is love. Actually love one another. Resist the evil, be brave and honourable, and peacefully, as everybody said before me, fight for freedoms, for our children's children. It's up to us to join political parties like Reignite Democracy and look at people like Craig Kelly, United Australia Party, etc. Start spreading the unity and love right now. Change the political arena. It may be a medium or long-term game, but start now, because politics is for those who turn up, not the lazy. Start spreading the unity and love message with your neighbours. Jesus said, love your neighbours as you love yourself. Gladys and Dan Andrews, they are trying to divide and conquer. They are the enemy. She said she won't go near an unvaxxed person. Dan Andrews said the hospitals and the economy will not welcome the unvaxxed. Qantas can go and get stuffed. Don't fly on them. The evil no longer hides. Start speaking to these fantastic police officers, and I thank God that Grant Stevens is not mandating them. I thank God for that. We need some good news. Start speaking to the police officers. All of you know some. Start speaking to them. Have conversations with shop owners and speak to your bosses now before it's too late, because they're going to sack you anyway. So speak to them now while you've got a choice. Put some love in their heart. Start influencing them. We are taught and ought to love all genders, all races, all religions and all choices. So a needle is going to divide humanity? People get called sexist, racist, homophobe. We don't go around calling them vaxists. God loved the world so much that he allowed his own son to be sacrificed, and that sacrifice is for love. Show your sacrifice and teach Adelaide how to love. In New South Wales and Victoria, they are coming out and saying we will serve any human. That's brilliant. Together this unity and love can break their division. The tyrants hate this. They want us to do their work for them. Love conquers all. If they reject you, give them a gift. Just keep loving them. Stay peaceful. Stay peaceful. Love, love, love. And I'll leave you with this to inspire you. There's a movie on Foxtel, only goes for 35 minutes, called The Square, or Tahrir in the Square. I hope some of you guys have seen it. It's exceptional in its inspiration. In Egypt, 2011, the city of Cairo, the brave, desperate people decided their tyrannical leader, 30 years, was no longer to be in power. They had enough. Little by little, over the space of 1 week, the people peacefully sat in the square and the numbers grew to 1 million in 1 week to protest peacefully in 1 week. He turned their own people against them by paying them $75 per person, that's all, to turn against them, and it didn't work. He brought in the army, it didn't work. He brought in the snipers, and unfortunately 856 were murdered. Still, they sat there in peace, and they demanded that he go. The 1 million sat there unmoved, unified, in love. It took 18 days and he stood down. 18 days. Now please listen to this careful. These people had nothing to lose. They were rich, they were poor but rich in spirit. And we've got everything to lose, and we can't do in 18 months what they've done in 18 days. This stuff, this movement cannot stop. It needs to go forward. I was so glad when it started to rain, nobody left. This needs to grow. This needs to grow. Finally, before I go, I just want to pray the peace of Jesus Christ over all of you, the peace that goes beyond all understanding. And protect them, Father, as we lovingly fight for freedom and freely fight for love, in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you. God bless you.
Sorry, but I live in fear of being lynched by the speakers that I don't get to. So we all happy to keep standing here? That was a joke, by the way. Okay, Miles actually stepped up to the mic right at the end of proceedings last time, and you might have missed him. He had some very powerful words, so we've welcomed him back.
Hello, all you wonderful Australians. Thank you all so much for coming out here today. What an incredible time to be alive. So incredible that we have the best advice for our individual, our community, and our family's well-being and health at our fingertips. We have it pushed down our throats every day of the week. What is that advice? The exact opposite of what the government is telling you. The exact opposite of what the mainstream media is telling you. That's what's in our best interests. Now, this Pandora's box is open, so to speak. And people are aware of this. People are aware that what we've been being told to do, what we've been mandated to do, isn't in our best interest for our health at all. We want connection and community. We don't want isolation. We want people to come together in this time. Now, the Pandora's box is open and people recognise where we're at. They recognise that now that the old normal isn't any good. The old normal got us to where we are today. This needs to change. So the old normal's no good. The new normal that the globalists are pushing on us is no good either. So we need to seriously reevaluate what we're doing as people, right? As we're doing as communities. So if we leave here today, we leave this protest, we go home and we say, oh, we've done our bit, right? We've done our little bit here, we've come together, we've had some connection. You know, this is fantastic. It's a part of the suite of mechanisms we need to employ to create change. There is no issue with these lawful assemblies. These lawful assemblies are necessary. We connect with one another, we share knowledge, and we put a little bit of pressure, right? But we go home and that pressure's gone, okay? What we need to recognise is when we go home, we need to continue, we need to be smart. We are in no position to be dumb. We don't have time for stupid. We need to work together in our communities. We need to form coalitions. We need to lawyer up. Right? Connect with your communities, connect with your schools, connect with people in your communities that have similar thoughts. And we need to keep that pressure consistent. Consistent pressure so that they don't forget what we're saying and why we're saying it. Now, people are speaking about all kinds of mechanisms that we can use. We can follow legal avenues. We can look at constitutional law. We can look at our communities and the way we can push health, well-being and freedom through those mechanisms. We need to look at all of that. We need to come together and push this hard every day. We need to change that. We can't go home and turn on Netflix and forget this even happened. Those days are over. We don't have that luxury. We don't have the luxury of going back to what was. Now I'm going to leave you with that message, and I'm going to urge everyone here to be consistent in their efforts to reignite this country and bring back democracy, representative democracy, not a totalitarian democracy which we currently have. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Hey, how about smiling? Smiling at the person next to you, pat them on the back and say, bloody oath, thank you for being here. Because that's what we're here for. Freedom. I stood, you can't believe this, eh? I don't look old enough, I know. 23 years ago I held my first rally for democracy at Parliament House. And we were looking for something really unique. It was called a free and informed vote. And if you're not aware, we run in a two-party system. The two-party systems, the two parties getting together and writing legislation for election law to make sure you can't get anyone else in to challenge the two-party system. And the two-party system is broken. And that's why you're here today, because they don't fear you anymore. You know, politics is about the people you elect being frightened of you, worrying whether you're going to kick them out of politics next time there's an election. And they used to fear you, and they don't anymore. And that's why they do this shit they're doing to us right now. Okay? So a free and informed vote. 23 years ago I fought for it. Then I tried freedom of speech when they started shutting down social media. I don't know if you know, I was the first person to be sued for comments of others on my social media posts. I went to the High Court, I lost 100 grand. The cost of freedom. Not aware of it? Right now I've just done it again. So you can now be sued for the comments of others on your social media posts. I happened to be fighting a fire, if you're wondering why I wasn't monitoring them. And should I have monitored what people said on my posts? I was a politician, for Christ's sake. I was asking you to vote. I had every right to say what the hell I like on my social media, and you have every right to comment back to me and tell me what you want me to do for you. That's called representative democracy. And now we're here now, looking for the simple freedom, medical freedom protected by the Constitution. These people trying to take your freedoms away are breaking the law. They're breaking the law. The law protects you. If they want to change the Constitution, you know what they've got to do? They've got to come to us, we the people, and say, we want to change these laws. And you know what we're going to say to them? Piss off. The Constitution protects our right to a free and informed vote. It protects our right to liberty to speak to each other. It's a thing called, I'm trying to do 2 minutes here. 2 minutes. So there's a law in there that says representative democracy covers your right to free speech. And now we're saying we have a right to a free and informed choice over what we put in our bodies. And they're trying to bully us. Can you remember your parents when you were a kid? Don't let the bullies tell you what to do. If they jumped off a cliff, would you jump off the cliff? No. Someone said to me the other day, just get the jab, you're too scared. I said, well, you're a drug pusher. What's going on? For Christ's sake. That's what it was like. So I'm going to be quick here, but I've been standing for my community for 23 years, and I won't bloody lay down right now, and none of us better do that. So stand united, everybody. Okay, stand up. Smile. Leave your mask off. Share the love, compassion. If they shut down the nightclubs, let's have parties here on the park, eh? If they shut down the restaurants, let's have picnics in the park. You cannot take away the freedoms of Australian people. It just don't work. Try your life.
You bloody beauty. Well done. Thank you, Mark. This is Ernie. Ernie's got something to say very quickly.
Big Brother is too personal. We now must think of Big Other. Big Other we cannot trust to do the right thing by us. Big Wireless, Big Pharma and all the other bigs, using almost all our parliamentary representatives as puppets to talk about those of us who resist their mandates as bad people doing the wrong thing. And if we say no to the marketing of their experimental jab, we are selfish people. Then all those who surrender to these various big other mandates are doing the right thing. They are unselfish, good people. Pat on the back for doing what we tell you. Well, it's becoming clearer and clearer that their version of doing the right thing is doing the wrong thing, and needs to be resisted constructively, positively, strongly, but respectfully. Just like the Vietnam War 50 years ago when I marched against sending people to Vietnam. It's the same thing, and it's a little bit similar to the civil rights movement. We shall overcome. And I suggest today we actually sing that, because we can overcome if we resist and do it respectfully.
Thank you, Annie. So Tim Dwyer has spoken at a number of our rallies. He's always very
Thanks, Kathy. Greetings, everybody. How are you? I am so proud to be a South Australian today to see all you people who hold freedom dear to your heart and to your soul. Anybody here from the north of Adelaide? Give me a yell. Anyone? Anybody from the south? Anybody? What about out in the east, in the hills? We've come from all over. Oh, the west! Don't forget the west! All right. We talk about the constitution of this country. And here it is. I bought it today so as it would sit amongst the midst of the people who love it and will gain energy and strength from it. I have another one in the crowd over here. There's brothers. All right. This microphone's a little high. Here we go. Here's some real quick numbers for you. Israel, the 14th of September 2020. Number of adults vaccinated in Israel then was 0. The number of adult populations triple vaxxed then, 0. Daily COVID deaths, the rolling 7-day average, was 17. September the 14th, 2021. 80% of the adult population is fully vaccinated. 50% of the adult population is triple vaccinated. The daily rolling death average for every 7 days is 33. And our stupid, ignorant politicians and health officials think going down the same path is a good thing. What do you think? I've got to be quick. I spoke last time about getting rid of the spell of fear, the evil spell of pharmakia, and it seems like we're doing that. We're growing. Years ago I met a man in Melbourne who was a Jewish man, and when he was a little boy his uncle came to his house and said, quickly, we have to leave. The SS are coming through tomorrow and they're going to take us all to camps. And his father said, don't be ridiculous, that'll never happen. Well, long story short, the little boy and his elder brother left with their uncle. It was the last time he saw his family. His father said the last thing he remembers his father saying is, don't be ridiculous, the government would never do that to us. Absolute rubbish. Learn from history, people, learn from history. The Charter of Human Rights has been broken by every member of this government, state and federal. The Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights that was signed on October the 19th, 2005. I'm going to read Article 6 to you and then I'm going to jump right through to some other stuff. Article 6 is on consent. Any preventative, diagnostic, therapeutic, medical intervention is only to be carried out with the prior, free and informed consent of the person concerned based on adequate information. The consent, where appropriate, be expressed may be withdrawn by the person concerned at any time for any reason. Now listen to this. Listen. Without disadvantage or prejudice. Yes. Australia is a signatory to that document. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the right of righteousness on our side. Evil cares nothing for righteousness. And that's obvious. You only have to look in the eyes of Daniel Andrews and Bleary-eyed Gladys. Right? They've wiped out our Magna Carta. They do not obey the Constitution of this country. There's some names I want you to remember throughout history of your life, and let your children and grandchildren remember these names. Never forget them. Hurley, Morrison, Brendan Murphy, Paul Kelly, that guy Hunt again, Andrews, Sutton, Berejiklian, Plazachuk, Young, Marshall and Spurrier. Don't ever forget those names. Who are you? You stand here today, who are you? Who are you in yourself? Who are you in your soul? Who are you in your spirit? Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. You're frightened of how powerful you can be. Step into your power. Step into your light. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant and gorgeous and talented? Well, gorgeous, yeah, okay. And talented and fabulous. Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not move the world forward. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us, and it's within us all. It's called our DNA. It's our little light. As we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. We're here today to liberate the people around us, not each other, the people out there. We're here to help the policemen here. We're here to help the ambos. We're here to help the teachers. We're here to help the children. I'm going to finish up with something that I really do like. You did not have a choice in the circumstances of your birth. You did not have a choice in the date of your birth. You did not get to choose the nation unto which you were born. You did not have any say who your parents would be. You did not get to choose the character of your parents. And you may not have any choice in the circumstances of your upbringing. Also, you may not have any choice in how you will die. However, in all of this choicelessness, you do get to choose how you will live. Will you be slave or will you be free? What will you be? It's not what we say that defines us. I'm up here flapping my chops. It's not what I say that defines us. It's what you do every day that will define who you will be. And 5 years, 10 years, 50 years from now, when they teach the history of this time to your children's children and their children, will anybody remember your name or the stand that you took, or did you bow down? Ladies and gentlemen, I love you all. Stay free, stay peaceful, and no matter what, never, ever, ever bow to the tyrants. Thank you so much.
Not know. Spread love. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is, I go by the name of Fox Barrow. I make music to create lights. My message is, be light, be love, be hope, be the change that you wish to see in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take to the streets and let's dance to the streets of Adelaide. Let's get it. Give it up for yourself, not for me. Give it up for yourself. Let's go. Let's be out there. Let's be light. Let's be love.
Support them. Grant Harrison is here going around as well. He's doing a lot.
tell the truth.
More marches like this one, more streets shut down.
Thank you!
Organisers say expect more marches like this one, more streets shut down.
Thank you!
Organisers say expect more marches like this one, more streets shut down as long as closure restrictions remain.
It was quite a rally, going for sort of an hour and a half nearly, very close to that, and there must be 4,000 or 5,000 people at least here, and it's been powerful. Such a mixture of different types of people, which is what's interesting. People want a stereotype. They want to say these are bogans, or these are right wingers, or these are extremists, or whatever. It's just not true. it's a wide range of people who can see what really is going on. And so I think it's marvellous that it's happening. It does sort of help to give people the confidence to stand up against some of these mandates. I think it should be we should have a moratorium on mandates, just like we did in the Vietnam marches 50 years ago, which I attended in Sydney. It's bringing that back, and you know, people look back on that and they say, oh well, that was an honourable cause, and some people would think this isn't an honourable cause. Well, I disagree. I think it is really an honourable thing to be standing up for our children's rights, not to be vaccinated with this and all those other mandates. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can. Well, let me just.
What brings me here?
Yeah.
Just love and connection and freedom. And yeah, just a reminder that we're all one.
Okay.
I stand for our freedom and our human rights.
That's great. And you got the music to
yeah, I wanted to inject
go with
love
it. All right.
I was singing We Will Overcome with my head on the way here.
Were you? Let's do it.
I reckon.
We could try it.
You'll be getting arrested.
Assalamu alaikum.
And I am representing freedom of choice, freedom of movement. I am representing everything that I love in this world, which is community, which is love, which is music. These are the things that I represent. I've got the virus coming after me. You stay away from me. This is my wife. It's all good. We're crazy together. DCP is hanging out on the corner waiting for us to make a mistake. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end. Let's be love, let's be light, let's be hope, let's be super thankful, and let's show them what smiles and happiness looks like. Because that is why we gathered today, because that is what freedom looks like. Freedom comes from within. Freedom is here. We feel it inside and we walk out into the world and we practice it every day. We thank our police officers for supporting us.